What's going on, guys? It's Jack with Jack Banks MMA, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my early betting ideas for UFC 279. UFC 279 is a bit of a weird card, in my opinion. Obviously, at the top of the card, we have the main event of Khamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz, and that is almost an unplayable main event. Unless the line for Khamzat via finish is good, and even that, I think he gets the finish, right? I think most of us think he gets the finish, but Nate Diaz is, if he's nothing else, he's tough. So you never know if he could survive, but man, I would really think the line would be minus 400 or something on Khamzat via inside the distance, rather. So to me, it's probably going to be unplayable. Next up, the co-main event, we have the Leech taking on Tony Ferguson. And this too almost feels unplayable. I would think Li Jianling or Jing Liang, would win this fight. Tony Ferguson's moving up. He hasn't looked great as of late, and it's really not too long from that Michael Chandler knockout. But at the same time, the line is already, I think, around minus 300 on the Leech. That's getting a bit high. Ferguson, for as bad as I wouldn't even say he's looked terrible. You know, he had some good moments in that Michael Chandler fight. Before that, you know, Dariush and Oliveira, Gaethje, like they didn't go his way. In the Oliveira fight, you know, he certainly struggled on the ground, but you know, the Leech isn't going to take him to the ground. It's going to be a stand-up affair. Can Ferguson deal with the power of the Leech? That's the question at 170. If we know nothing about Tony Ferguson, it's that we know he's tough. So this kind of reminds me a bit of like the Rockhold versus Costa fight of 2 weeks ago, where it's everyone is certain that the Leech is going to get a finish here, and I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. So depending on the line, I might be looking to play this to go to decision more than anything. Moving down the card from the top here, we have Irene Aldana taking on Macy Chiasson. I'm not going to go through every fight, but there are some fights, especially towards the top of the card, that I want to talk about from a betting perspective. This fight's really interesting to me, mostly because it's at 135. If this fight was at 145, I would be on the Chiasson side. But since it's at 135, both women, honestly, have struggled a bit making the 135 weight class. Aldana completely missed weight in her last performance. Chiasson actually didn't make weight at 145 2 fights ago, but that was on short notice, so really can't ding her for that. But she has admitted, you know, that 135 is a tough cut for her. And so I understand there's not a women's featherweight division really, but at the same time, she's looked good at 145, so I'm surprised she's going back to 135. And Aldana's boxing is really good. So this is a fight, to me, I wish I could have found on tape, I'll say it this way. I wish that Aldana would have had an opponent with the length of Chiasson beforehand so I can have that evidence that Aldana has dealt with that length before. But she's fought some people with close to the length as Chiasson. Not quite the length, but Ketlin Vieira is close. There's a couple other fighters, or one other fighter that I can't remember the name, that Aldana fought that's a couple inches shorter, a couple inches less reach than Chiasson, but I think that reach is significant. So if I bet this fight, I'm going to play Aldana via money line, but I am not super confident in this fight. The next fight I want to talk about is another late addition to the card. which is Kevin Holland taking on Daniel Rodriguez. And Kevin Holland is a 2-1 favorite, and he's a people's favorite. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. I'll say that right off the bat. Having said that, though, I don't see why he's a 2-1 favorite. Kevin Holland is super entertaining. He's a good striker, but so is Daniel Rodriguez. And Rodriguez is going to be giving up 6 inches of reach. So I understand why Holland is favored, especially because it is going to be a stand-up affair for the most part. But Holland, at times, will give away his reach advantage. He will rush forward, and he will leave opportunities for the opponent to get in on the inside. And Daniel Rodriguez is a very good boxer. He's very technical. He's very smart as well in terms of his fighting style and what he's looking to accomplish when he's in the octagon. So this is something where I'm going to watch the line. I'm curious to see which way it moves. But if it moves more towards the Holland side, I think I'll be adding a play on Daniel Rodriguez because there is value to be had on his side. Now I'm going to go a little bit quicker on some of these fights on the undercard here. So Norma Dumont taking on Danielle Wolf. I think it's a little bit risky, but I do think Dumont has value as a parlay piece. Danielle Wolf is a boxer who's come into MMA really late in her career. She really struggled to get fights because of her boxing experience. It was tough for her to get fights on the regional scene. And in the one fight she had on Dana White's Contender Series, there were moments where her opponent hurt her on the feet. And that was a bit concerning. Danielle Wolf, though, she's had some competitions in jiu-jitsu and things of that nature, but I really think Norma Dumont is going to bounce back from that Chiasson performance. She had a really good third round in that fight. And I think she has value as a parlay piece. At minus 300, I was kind of hoping it'd be a little bit lower. But, if you're looking for a piece to parlay, I think Dumont makes sense. Almeida taking on Abdurakhimov. I think Almeida gets it done inside the distance, but again, we got to see what that number is for it to make sense. Pickett taking on Tululin. This was a fight that's been rescheduled. I liked Tululin moneyline, and I liked him via knockout the first time around. Not as anything big size. Again, this is a bit of a weird card to me, so there aren't too many fights that I'm like, hey, you got to go heavy here. So if there's anything like that for you guys, I would love to hear it. But I just think Pickett, he uses his grappling sometimes, but he's not the most consistent with it. And Tululin has a good initial takedown defense. He kind of struggles when it gets into that second, third, that chain wrestling, if you will. And I think his straight shots are his striking is much more technical than Pickett, and I think he'll be able to have some opportunities on the feet to get a finish in this one. Moving on to last couple fights that I want to mention on this card. Jake Collier taking on Chris Barnett. I really like Jake Collier in this fight, but the line is crazy. He's like a minus 300 favorite, and I can't play that. So I'm going to just be watching this one, and I can't have any action there. But because the line is as crazy as it is, in my opinion, I don't blame people if you want to side with Chris Barnett. It's just his opponents, his wins usually aren't against the best competition. Collier has shown in his past few fights that he's not a top 15 heavyweight, but he's certainly in that next tier. And will beat guys kind of coming up trying to get into that top 15. I could see him being kind of that gatekeeper of the top 15-ish, maybe top 20 of the heavyweight division. Last up, Darian Weeks versus Johan Lioness. I like Weeks, and I like Weeks via the money line. I think there's value there. He's the more complete fighter. Lioness needs to put him out with one big shot, and certainly could happen, but we've seen Weeks go up against Brian Barberena. We've seen him go up against Ian Gary. And while there's not necessarily a ton of output from Weeks, he just is really solid. He's got decent wrestling. He's got decent striking. I just think that he has more in his toolbox to get a win in this fight. But let me know what you guys think of some of my bets. Like I said, it's a bit of a weird card. I'm much more confident in the fights on the September 17th card, which is Sandhagen versus Yadong. That fight, there are some fights on that card that I think are going to be some really good betting opportunities. So next week, I'll be giving you guys my early betting ideas for that card. So make sure to tune back in for that. But let me know what you guys think about my ideas, some of your ideas in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.